Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 46b, top of the page, with the words Kol ha-nishom damim ba'achar. Continuing from the previous daf where Rav Yehuda said, this is what the Mishnah is saying, top of 46b, Kol ha-nishom damim ba'achar. With regard to all items that can be appraised when used as monetary value for another item, meaning their value can be appraised relative to the value of another item, excluding a coin whose value is apparent. Once one party in the transaction acquires the item he is receiving, this party is obligated with regard to the item being exchanged for it. The novelty of the Mishnah is that all items, not only vessels, can be used to perform the act of acquisition of exchange. Therefore, one should not infer that the halacha is the same with regard to coins. The Gemara comments, so too, it is reasonable to interpret the Mishnah in that manner, from the fact that the latter clause of the Mishnah teaches how so. If one exchanges an ox for a cow or a donkey for an ox, once this party acquires the animal that he is receiving, this party is obligated with regard to the item being exchanged for it. This clause apparently explains the previous clause and employs the example of animals, not coins. The Gemara concludes, learn from it, that the reference in the Mishnah is to movable property and not to coins. The Gemara asks, and with regard to what entered our minds initially, that a coin affects symbolic exchange, what is the meaning? That's the 162 bus, by the way, in North Hollywood Station. So in case 162 means something, gematriatically, it has been stated. 162. The Gemara asks, and with regard to, is the gematria of Binyamin spelled with two yuds? 162. The Gemara asks, and with regard to what entered our minds initially, that a coin affects symbolic exchange, what is the meaning of the clause, how so? If one exchanges an ox for a cow, once this party acquires the animal that he is receiving, this party is obligated with regard to the item being exchanged for it. This example does not involve a coin. The Gemara explains that it was assumed that this is what the Mishnah is saying. Not only can a coin be used in the act of acquisition of exchange, but produce, meaning movable property, can also affect exchange. How so? If one exchanged the meat of an ox for a cow or the meat of a donkey for an ox, once this party acquires the item that he is receiving, this party is obligated with regard to the item being exchanged for it. The Gemara comments, this works out well according to the opinion of Rav Sheshet, who said, produce affects the transaction of exchange. But according to the opinion of Rav Nachman, who said, a vessel, yes, it affects transaction of exchange, but produce does not affect a transaction of exchange. What is the meaning of the continuation of the Mishnah beginning with the question, how so? The Gemara answers that this is what the Mishnah is saying. Not that. This. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Hold on. Okay, there is a purchase with money that one acquires the purchase of purchase item without pulling it. That is like a transaction of exchange. How so? Is it a case where one exchanged the monetary value of an ox for a cow or the monetary value of a donkey for an ox? In this case, one sold his ox to another for an agreed sum of money, and after the buyer acquired the ox by pulling it, he then offered to give the seller his cow in exchange for the money, that he owes him. In this case, the cow was acquired without the seller having to pull it. Although this acquisition initially was to be an exchange, it is ultimately the purchase for money. A purchase for money, as the second animal is acquired as a result of the forgiving of the monetary debt. The Gemara inquires, what is the reason for the opinion of Rav Nachman? The Gemara explains Rav Nachman holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who says, by Torah law, money affects acquisition. Meaning that when one pays money, he acquires the item even if he has not yet... Oh, it's a crow. Reminds me of Elijah. They fed Elijah, no? Eliyahu Hanavi. When one pays money, he acquires the item, even if he has not yet performed an act of acquisition. And for what reason did the sages say that pulling acquires an item and money does not? This is a rabbinic decree, lest the seller say to the buyer, after receiving the money, your wheat was burned in the upper story. If a fire breaks out or some other mishap occurs after a seller receives the money, he will not bother to save the goods in his house because they no longer belong to him, and the buyer may incur a loss. The sages therefore decree that acquisition takes effect only when a buyer pulls the item. The Mishnah allows a transaction that indicates that one can affect acquisition using only money, because that case of the Mishnah is explained as by Rav Nachman is an uncommon occurrence. It is rare for one who has sold his animal to exchange for money to change his mind and request an animal from the purchaser instead, and it is only with regard to a common matter that the sages issued a decree, whereas with regard to an uncommon matter, the sages did not issue a decree. Consequently, the sages did not apply their decree to this situation. The Gemara asks, and how is the Mishnah explained? And how is the Mishnah explained? And how is the Mishnah explained? According to the opinion of Reish Lakish, who disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan and says that pulling is explicitly stated in the Torah, Reish Lakish maintains that the acquisition of movable property cannot be performed with money by Torah law, and therefore there can be no distinction between common and uncommon cases. This works out well if Reish Lakish holds in accordance with the opinion of Sheshet, who says that produce affects exchange. If so, he can explain the Mishnah in accordance with the opinion of Sheshet. But if he holds in accordance with the opinion of Rav Nachman, who says that produce does not affect exchange and a coin does not affect acquisition by Torah law or by rabbinic law, how does he explain the Mishnah? The Gemara answers, perforce Reish Lakish explains the Mishnah in accordance with the opinion of Rav Sheshet. We learned in the Mishnah, with regard to those who exchange all forms of movable property, each acquires the property of the other. And Reish Lakish says, the expression all forms of movable property includes even a case where they exchange a money pouch full of coins for a money pouch full of coins. Apparently, coins affect exchange and are acquired by means of a transaction of exchange. The Gemara rejects this. Rav Acha interpreted that the exchange of coins is referring to the exchange of a money pouch filled with anka dinars and a money pouch filled with anigera dinars. One is a coin that the kingdom invalidated, as the king decreed that a coin will no longer be used, and one is a coin that residents of a province invalidated, as they no longer use it as currency. And it is necessary, it is very necessary to teach the halakha in both cases, as if the Tana taught us this halakha only with regard to a coin that the kingdom invalidated, I would have said it is not a coin due to the fact that it is not circulated at all, as the king banned its use. But with regard to a coin that the residents of a province invalidated, which circulates in a different state, say its legal status is still that of a coin, and money cannot be acquired by means of a transaction of exchange. And if the Tana taught us this halakha only with regard to a coin that the residents of a province invalidated, I would have said it is not a coin due to the fact that in that place it neither circulates in private nor in public, as the local residents do not use it as currency. But with regard to a coin that the kingdom invalidated, which could circulate in private, say that its legal status is still that of a coin, and money cannot be acquired by means of a transaction of exchange. Therefore, it was necessary to teach the halakha in both cases. Rabbah says that Rav Huna says, if one said to another, sell me your item for these coins that are in my hand, and when taking the money, the owner of the item did not determine the sum, the buyer acquired the article, and the transaction is complete, and neither can renege on the deal.